Alright, it's been raining for a couple of days actually. So all I got to do, well, I got still a lot to do, but what I'm doing right now is following down the edge after hammering the metal and putting that grinder on it. The edge of the blade is doing like a wave to it. So I got a little pencil, a grease pencil I guess is what it is. I'm marking on the blades all the high points. I'm just following down on both sides until all them high points are down and it's level with the blade. And this takes a long time. I've been doing this for about 3 hours. Actually, I was watching TV and doing this while I was watching TV. And I decided to come out here and clamp it down. But basically, I got a hump right here. Basically, I'm taking the file and I'm pulling it down towards the handle, and I'm pulling it towards the blades. I'm just pretend you're pushing the edge on. Really, you're cutting it, but you're pushing. Just pretend you're pushing it, and you just do that. And when you flip it on the other side, you gotta push it the same exact direction, down towards the handle, kind of at a little angle. Lucky the sword ain't so hard that I can't sharpen it. I had made knives and stuff so hard that it was almost impossible to sharpen with a file. Also, when you're using a file, you can tell what kind of blade you got. I can tell that it's flexible and soft up until about right here, and then it gets very hard towards the handle, which tells me that the handle was a lot harder than the rest of the sword. But that's alright because it's still flexible and it's still straight, so let's not worry about that. But as you put that file onto it, you can see how it cuts into it and how it bites into the metal. And back here it's not biting too good because the metal is so hard. Alright, once you got to a certain degree, you're going to constantly be flipping, moving and flipping and looking. Just going to look down the blade like this. I'm looking down it, and I'm just looking at the waves. And apparently I already made a mark, so I'm going to flip it over. This is the same thing. I'm cutting this down, this whole top half down. And remember, since you're coming down the handle now, you gotta go this direction because the handle's right here. So I flipped it backwards. Try not to get in the way of the camera, but really I need to do this. And like I said, this takes a long time. But it is very important. It's all part of the process. I'm pretty sure they got machines that do this, but I don't have any. Looking pretty good though. I just gotta do this over and over and over. Just flip it, check it, flip it, check it till the whole blade is as straight as you can get it. Alright, after spending hours and hours and hours of following down the edge, making it straight, I'm gonna use a stone now. Put a little oil on it. And basically just gonna work the little edges. Some small little circles. And as I go, I got a bunch of stones, different kind of stones, and the stones get smoother and smoother and smoother. Flip it over and do the other side. Alright, after doing the buffing with the stones and all that, I got some sandpaper. I'm going to start with 150 grit, grain, whatever you want to call it. And basically, I'm just going to kind of buff out the blade. I'm not going to do circles on this, I'm just going to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Try to keep the basically the scratches uniform. Alright, after doing that with 150 grit sandpaper, I'm going to go with 100 and 400, which would be probably the final buffing with this. As you can see, I got something new. I cut my finger sliding across the blade, hit all the way to the bone. I barely touched the blade. So you got to be careful with that. Be aware of your hands. Also, while I'm here showing you stuff, I'll show you, see all these little dark marks? That's just basically hammer marks, which is lower spots in the sword. So when you're buffing, you're going to see all them darker spots everywhere, which is just, like I said, lower spots. Alright, to keep from seeing the little dips, you just got to get you some sandpaper, say 400 grit, and you cut you one a piece about the size of a stamp and burn your finger all over it until you get rid of it. But I'll do that later on, but right now I'm going to carefully buff this when I cut myself again. Alright. After buffing the sword out, I put a piece of duct tape on there so I don't scratch up the blade. Right now I'm going to make the edge of the blade razor sharp. I got a piece of sandpaper, I think 400 grit is what it is. Also with the buffing wheel kind of makes it sharper too as you go with it. Basically, I'm just gonna make tiny little circles. Or back and forth. Take it back and forth. Yeah. Gotta be careful you don't cut yourself, like I did already. You just follow the blade, because the blade, the way I sharpen it, is kind of starts out thick and it works itself down kind of like a edge of a leaf, I guess, if you look at a leaf like that. So you just gotta, don't force it any other direction, just kind of go with it. Basically, I'm gonna do this on both sides, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, slightly buffing and buffing and buffing and on the final pass, I'm gonna pass it coming down, kind of like I did with that file, coming down towards the handle. Alright, I believe I'm finishing up. Pulling that tape off. I don't know what the camera's showing right now or not, but you see it's a little different color on the edge and the blade. Alright, now I'm going to buff the blade out with some compounds. Ooh, that's sharp too. Alright, next step. I'm using this stuff right here. It's basically it cleans metal and it polishes and buffers, and that's pretty good. And basically I'm just putting a little bit on my finger and just working it everywhere in the blade. I use this stuff on all kinds of metal. It works out pretty good. You want to be careful not to cut yourself at this point, because this stuff is pure ammonia, and if you get cut your finger while putting this stuff on, it's going to burn. Alright, I'm just going to let that set for a little while, about 5 minutes, to kind of let it dry, and then I'll buff it off with a soft piece of cloth. Alright, so I'm just going to wait. I don't know if the camera could pick it up, but it put a pretty good shine on it. I'm gonna probably repeat this process about 4 or 5 times on both sides of the blade. I'm not gonna put a mirror finish on the blade because this is for use. And the first time you cut some bottles or some branches down, it's going to scuff it up. So I'm not going to spend too much time getting a mirror finish on it, because the first time you use it, it's just going to be gone. And in fact, I'm going to cut some stuff with it before I sell it to the person who ordered it. I'm going to make at the end of it, I want to demonstrate it. Let me cut some stuff with it. Right now this point is razor sharp, so I gotta be careful not to cut myself. I'm kind of paranoid of that. Alright, I'm gonna repeat this process about 4 or 5 times on each side.